The warning. The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning, transmitted directly to Earth's Interstellar Communications Hub in Geneva. Dr. Elena Santos stood frozen before the holographic display, her dark eyes scanning the alien text multiple times to ensure she hadn't misread it. After 15 years as Earth's chief xenolinguist, she had learned to read between the lines of the Concordat's flowery diplomatic language. This wasn't just a message. It was an ultimatum. "Director Chen needs to see this immediately," she muttered, her fingers already flying across the haptic interface to forward the transmission. The Concordat, an alliance of over 300 spacefaring civilizations, had been watching humanity's progress with growing unease since first contact 30 years ago. But this was different. This was a threat wrapped in diplomatic niceties. Within an hour, the emergency council chamber in Geneva was filled with humanity's top leaders. Director Wei Chen, head of the Earth Defense Initiative, stood at the center of the room, his weathered face illuminated by the floating holographic text. "They're demanding we halt all quantum research," he announced to the assembled group, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "According to their message, our approach to quantum mechanics violates their established scientific protocols. We either conform to their standard development timeline or face complete isolation from interstellar trade and communication." Dr. Santos watched the ripple of reactions across the room. Admiral Sarah O'Neill, commander of Earth's nascent space fleet, leaned forward in her chair, her cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on the text. "How long would their standard timeline delay our progress?" she asked. 200 years, Chen replied quietly. The room erupted in murmurs and exclamations. Professor James Chen, no relation to the director, spoke up from his position near the quantum research displays. His reputation as Earth's leading quantum physicist made his next words carry particular weight. "Our approach to quantum mechanics is fundamentally different from theirs. We're not breaking their laws of physics. We're just looking at them from a completely different angle. Their understanding of quantum theory is linear. Ours is," he gestured expansively, "more creative. Creative enough to frighten them." Admiral O'Neill observed dryly. Director Chen nodded. "The Concordat operates on strict technological development schedules. Every member species is expected to advance along predetermined paths at predetermined rates. Our quantum research doesn't just bypass their timeline. It suggests their entire approach might be unnecessarily restrictive." Dr. Santos stepped forward, pulling up additional sections of the message. "There's more. They're particularly concerned about Project Prometheus." The room grew quiet. Project Prometheus was humanity's most ambitious undertaking, an attempt to harness quantum fields not just for computation or communication, but for energy generation on a massive scale. If successful, it would solve humanity's energy needs forever, and completely upend the Concordat's carefully controlled energy economy. "They don't understand how we're achieving our results," Professor Chen explained, his hands moving through the air as he manipulated quantum formula in the holographic display. "Our methods don't fit their models. To them, it looks like we're breaking fundamental laws of physics. We're not, of course. We're just approaching them from an angle they never considered." Admiral O'Neill stood, her military bearing commanding attention. "So we have a choice. Either we abandon our research, fall in line with their development schedules, and wait 2 centuries to develop technologies we're on the verge of cracking now, or we face isolation." Director Chen finished. "No trade, no cultural exchange, no access to their star charts or scientific databases." Dr. Santos had been studying the message's subtler implications. The isolation wouldn't just be diplomatic. They're threatening to establish a quarantine zone around our entire solar system. Any ship entering or leaving would be intercepted. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had only just begun to establish colonies on Mars and Venus. Their first extrasolar settlement was still under construction. Isolation now could cripple humanity's expansion into space. Professor Chen broke the silence with a short laugh. Everyone turned to look at him. "Sorry," he said, not looking sorry at all. It's just, they really don't understand humans at all, do they? Telling us something's impossible, or that we're doing it wrong. He shook his head. That's practically a guarantee we'll work twice as hard to prove them wrong. Admiral O'Neill's cybernetic eye glowed with a fierce light. The professor's right. They're not really giving us a choice here. If we back down now, we'll be acknowledging their authority to dictate humanity's development forever. Director Chen looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes in turn. The Concordat expects us to either comply or beg for a compromise. I don't think they've considered that we might choose isolation willingly. He straightened, his decision made. Dr. Santos, please prepare our response. Keep it polite, but make it clear. Earth respectfully declines to alter its research directions or development timeline. They'll enforce the quarantine within days, Admiral O'Neill warned. Then we have days to prepare, Chen replied. Professor, how close is Project Prometheus to completion? The quantum physicist's eyes gleamed. Give me 6 months of unrestricted testing, and I'll give you an energy source that will make their quarantine irrelevant. You'll have it, Chen promised. Admiral, I want every ship we have recalled to Sol immediately. If we're going to be isolated, we'll do it on our terms. As the meeting continued, Dr. Santos began composing humanity's response to the Concordat. Looking around the room, she saw no fear in her colleagues' faces, only determination and a peculiarly human spark of defiance. The Concordat thought isolation was a punishment. They were about to learn it was simply removing all their restrictions on human innovation. The message she composed was brief, polite, and would send shockwaves through the Concordat's hierarchical society. Earth acknowledges your concerns regarding our technological development path. We respectfully choose to continue our research independently. We look forward to resuming diplomatic relations when the Concordat is prepared to engage with humanity as equals rather than subjects. End transmission. Silent Revolution. 5 years into Earth's isolation, the observation post on Titan captured an unusual sight. A Concordat surveillance vessel attempting to peek through the quantum interference field that now enveloped the entire solar system. Professor James Chen watched the grainy footage with amusement from his new office aboard Helios Station, humanity's first orbital research facility. They're still using standard quantum sensors, he noted to his colleague, Dr. Maya Patel, who floated nearby in the zero-gravity chamber. They might as well be trying to measure a quantum computer with an abacus. Maya nodded, her attention split between the footage and the streams of data flowing across her neural interface. They can't see anything past the interference field. To them, our entire solar system probably looks like a blur of random quantum fluctuations. That's because they never considered using quantum fields as a cloaking mechanism, James replied, his eyes twinkling. They're too focused on what the rules say is impossible. The last 5 years had transformed humanity's understanding of quantum mechanics. Project Prometheus hadn't just succeeded, it had exceeded every expectation. The quantum power cores now provided virtually unlimited clean energy to every human settlement from Mercury to the Kuiper Belt. But that was just the beginning. Director Chen is ready for your presentation, Maya announced, receiving the notification through her neural link. The whole board is assembled. James gathered his thoughts as they made their way to the station's central conference chamber. The room's walls were transparent, offering a stunning view of Earth below, wrapped in its shimmering quantum field. Around the table sat humanity's leadership council, their faces both physical and holographic, representing colonies and research stations throughout the solar system. Director Chen, his hair now more gray than black, nodded to James. Professor, you called this meeting. You said you've made a breakthrough. James took a deep breath. We've cracked it. True quantum space manipulation. He activated the room's holographic display, showing a complex mathematical model. We're not just talking about faster-than-light travel anymore. We're talking about the ability to fold space itself. Admiral O'Neill leaned forward, her cybernetic eye now supplemented by several new neural augmentations, another field where isolation had accelerated human innovation. You're saying we can bypass the Concordat's quarantine? Better, James replied. Their entire concept of space travel relies on pushing through space. We've figured out how to step around it entirely. Their fastest ships take months to cross their territory. With this technology, we could cross the same distance in hours. Dr. Santos, who had spent the isolation years studying the quantum communications they occasionally intercepted from Concordat space, spoke up. The Concordat's member species are growing restless. Their rigid development protocols are causing stagnation. Several frontier worlds have already attempted to break away. Director Chen's expression remained neutral, but his eyes showed intense interest. And our other projects? Maya stepped forward, pulling up new data streams. The quantum neural interfaces are now stable and being produced at scale. They've doubled human cognitive capabilities and processing speed. The quantum-enhanced manufacturing facilities on Mercury can produce in days what used to take months. The Mars terraforming project is 50 years ahead of schedule thanks to quantum environmental manipulation. And most importantly, James added, we've confirmed that none of our advancements show up on standard Concordat scanning technology. As far as they can tell, we've spent the last 5 years sitting quietly behind our quantum barrier, properly chastised. A quiet laugh rippled through the room. Director Chen allowed himself a small smile. And Project Aurora? James exchanged a glance with Maya before answering. Ready for final testing. If it works as we believe it will, we'll be able to establish quantum tunnels between any 2 points in space. Distance becomes meaningless. Admiral O'Neill's expression turned serious. The Concordat's quarantine fleet around our system has doubled in the past year. They're nervous about the lack of information coming from our space. Let them be nervous, Director Chen replied. They created this situation when they tried to force us to comply with their rules. Now they'll have to deal with the consequences of leaving humanity alone with its creativity and determination for 5 years. Dr. Santos brought up a new holographic display, showing the latest intelligence from beyond the quantum barrier. We're detecting increasing instability in the Concordat structure. Several frontier species have been secretly sending signals toward our system, hoping to establish contact. They're interested in alternatives to the Concordat's development protocols. Director Chen stood, looking out at Earth below. Then perhaps it's time we gave them one. Professor Chen, how long until Project Aurora is ready for its first test? 2 weeks, James replied confidently. We can have the first quantum tunnel operational within a month. Good, Chen nodded. Dr. Santos, prepare a message to be broadcast to all known spacefaring civilizations. Tell them that Earth is preparing to emerge from its isolation, and we're offering an alternative to the Concordat's restricted development path. Any species willing to embrace true innovation will be welcome to join us. As the meeting concluded, James lingered by the window, watching the quantum barrier shimmer around Earth. The Concordat had intended to punish humanity, to force them to comply with their rigid views of how civilization should develop. Instead, they had freed humanity from all constraints, allowing them to pursue paths of development the Concordat had never imagined possible. They thought isolation would weaken us, Maya said softly, joining him at the window. They didn't realize that humans thrive on challenges. James smiled, remembering the day the Concordat's ultimatum had arrived. They gave us exactly what we needed, the freedom to prove them wrong. The harvest crisis. The first signs of trouble reached Earth through quantum-intercepted transmissions. Dr. Elena Santos and her team had become experts at piecing together fragments of Concordat communications that leaked through their quantum barrier. This message was different, urgent, almost panicked. Director Chen, she called, her voice tight with concern as she burst into his office aboard Helios Station. The Concordat is facing a crisis. Some kind of biological agent is destroying their primary food production worlds. 3 species are already on the brink of starvation. Chen looked up from his holographic displays, his expression grave. Show me. The intercepted data painted a grim picture. A rapidly mutating bacterial strain had developed resistance to all standard concordat containment protocols. It was targeting the photosynthetic processes of multiple alien crop species, rendering entire harvests inedible within days. The concordat's rigid biological research restrictions had left them ill-equipped to handle such an aggressive and adaptable threat. They're failing to contain it, Alina explained, highlighting key portions of the data. Their approved treatment methods aren't working. The bacteria adapts faster than their protocols allow them to respond. And our quantum-enhanced biological research? Chen asked. Dr. Santos, who had spent the isolation years studying the quantum communications they occasionally intercepted from Concordat space, spoke up. The Concordat's member species are growing restless. Their rigid development protocols are causing stagnation. Several frontier worlds have already attempted to break away. Director Chen's expression remained neutral, but his eyes showed intense interest. And our other projects? Maya stepped forward, pulling up new data streams. The quantum neural interfaces are now stable and being produced at scale. They've doubled human cognitive capabilities and processing speed. The quantum-enhanced manufacturing facilities on Mercury can produce in days what used to take months. The Mars terraforming project is 50 years ahead of schedule thanks to quantum environmental manipulation. And most importantly, James added, we've confirmed that none of our advancements show up on standard Concordat scanning technology. As far as they can tell, we've spent the last 5 years sitting quietly behind our quantum barrier, properly chastised. A quiet laugh rippled through the room. Director Chen allowed himself a small smile. And Project Aurora? James exchanged a glance with Maya before answering. Ready for final testing. If it works as we believe it will, we'll be able to establish quantum tunnels between any 2 points in space. Distance becomes meaningless. Admiral O'Neill's expression turned serious. The Concordat's quarantine fleet around our system has doubled in the past year. They're nervous about the lack of information coming from our space. Let them be nervous, Director Chen replied. They created this situation when they tried to force us to comply with their rules. Now they'll have to deal with the consequences of leaving humanity alone with its creativity and determination for 5 years. Dr. Santos brought up a new holographic display, showing the latest intelligence from beyond the quantum barrier. We're detecting increasing instability in the Concordat structure. Several frontier species have been secretly sending signals toward our system, hoping to establish contact. They're interested in alternatives to the Concordat's development protocols. Director Chen stood, looking out at Earth below. Then perhaps it's time we gave them one. Professor Chen, how long until Project Aurora is ready for its first test? 2 weeks, James replied confidently. We can have the first quantum tunnel operational within a month. Good, Chen nodded. Dr. Santos, prepare a message to be broadcast to all known spacefaring civilizations. Tell them that Earth is preparing to emerge from its isolation, and we're offering an alternative to the Concordat's restricted development path. Any species willing to embrace true innovation will be welcome to join us. As the meeting concluded, James lingered by the window, watching the quantum barrier shimmer around Earth. The Concordat had intended to punish humanity, to force them to comply with their rigid views of how civilization should develop. Instead, they had freed humanity from all constraints, allowing them to pursue paths of development the Concordat had never imagined possible. They thought isolation would weaken us, Maya said softly, joining him at the window. They didn't realize that humans thrive on challenges. James smiled, remembering the day the Concordat's ultimatum had arrived. They gave us exactly what we needed, the freedom to prove them wrong. The harvest crisis. The first signs of trouble reached Earth through quantum-intercepted transmissions. Dr. Alina Santos and her team had become experts at piecing together fragments of Concordat communications that leaked through their quantum barrier. This message was different, urgent, almost panicked. Director Chen, she called, her voice tight with concern as she burst into his office aboard Helios Station. "The Concordat is facing a crisis. Some kind of biological agent is destroying their primary food production worlds. 3 species are already on the brink of starvation." Chen looked up from his holographic displays, his expression grave. "Show me." The intercepted data painted a grim picture. A rapidly mutating bacterial strain had developed resistance to all standard Concordat containment protocols. It was targeting the photosynthetic processes of multiple alien crop species, rendering entire harvests inedible within days. The Concordat's rigid biological research restrictions had left them ill-equipped to handle such an aggressive and adaptable threat. "They're failing to contain it," Alina explained, highlighting key portions of the data. "Their approved treatment methods aren't working. The bacteria adapts faster than their protocols allow them to respond." "And our quantum-enhanced biological research?" Chen asked. "Dr. Yuki Tanaka believes we could help," Alina replied. "Our unrestricted biotechnology research has given us tools the Concordat never developed. But helping them would mean revealing how far we've advanced," Chen finished. He was quiet for a moment, then activated his quantum comm. "Get me Dr. Tanaka and Admiral O'Neill. Now." Minutes later, Dr. Yuki Tanaka's hologram appeared in the office, her lab coat slightly rumpled from long hours in the quantum-enhanced biological research facility on Mars. Admiral O'Neill joined shortly after, her image projecting from one of Earth's orbital defense platforms. "The situation is worse than they're admitting in their broadcasts," Yuki began without preamble. "Based on the infection patterns we've observed, this bacteria will reach their core worlds within months. Their entire agricultural system could collapse within a year. Can we help?" Chen asked directly. Yuki nodded, her expression both excited and concerned. "Our quantum-guided genetic engineering could create resistant strains of their crops within weeks. The bacterial adaptation algorithms we developed for Mars terraforming could let us predict and counter every mutation path this pathogen might take." "But," she hesitated, "but using these technologies would reveal that we've completely ignored their biological research restrictions," O'Neill finished. "They'd see exactly how far we've gone beyond their protocols." Chen turned to the window, watching Earth rotate slowly below them, still wrapped in its protective quantum field. "Dr. Santos, what's your assessment of the Concordat's internal situation?" Elena pulled up more data streams. "They're fracturing. The frontier worlds are openly questioning the Council's handling of the crisis. Several species are threatening to break quarantine around Earth to seek our help directly, which would force a direct confrontation," O'Neill noted. "Their military vessels are still enforcing the quarantine, even with this crisis ongoing." "Then we don't wait for them to come to us," Chen decided. "Dr. Tanaka, how quickly can you prepare a demonstration of our solution?" "Give me 48 hours to package the resistant crop strains and treatment protocols," she replied. "But delivery would be another matter entirely. We have to break through their quarantine." "No," Chen smiled slightly. "We go around it. Professor Chen, is Project Aurora ready?" James Chen's hologram joined the others, his eyes bright with anticipation. "The quantum tunnels are stable. We can bypass their entire defense network. They'll never see us coming." "Good. Admiral O'Neill, prepare a humanitarian mission. Dr. Tanaka, you'll lead the scientific team. Dr. Santos, draft a message to the Concordat. Tell them help is coming, whether they want it or not." The next 2 days were a blur of activity. Yuki's team worked around the clock, preparing their quantum-engineered solutions. James Chen and his engineers fine-tuned the Aurora quantum tunnels. Admiral O'Neill's crew was ready a fleet of ships equipped with the latest quantum technology humanity had developed during their isolation. The message to the Concordat was brief. "We are aware of your crisis. We have solutions. Expect our arrival within 72 hours. Any interference with our humanitarian mission will demonstrate to all species that the Concordat places pride above survival." When the time came, humanity's emergence from isolation was spectacular. Quantum tunnels bloomed across Concordat space, far beyond their quarantine line. Ships of gleaming metal and shimmering quantum fields appeared simultaneously above a dozen dying agricultural worlds. Before the Concordat's military could react, treatment drones were already deploying Yuki's engineered solutions. From her position aboard the lead ship, Yuki watched in satisfaction as the first treated fields began to recover. "The quantum-guided modifications are taking hold," she reported. "The bacterial infection is being neutralized exactly as predicted." Admiral O'Neill's voice came through the quantum comm from her command ship. "Concordat vessels are approaching, but they're not taking hostile action. They're just watching." "Of course they are," Elena replied from her station monitoring communications. "We just did what they thought was impossible, using methods they declared forbidden, to solve a crisis their protocols couldn't handle. Their entire worldview is being challenged." Director Chen's hologram appeared on the bridge. "We're receiving a transmission from the Concordat High Council. They're requesting. No, they're begging for a dialogue. On our terms this time," O'Neill noted with satisfaction. "On nobody's terms," Chen corrected. "That's the point we need to make. Innovation can't be contained by arbitrary rules and protocols. The universe is too vast, its challenges too varied, for any one approach to be sufficient." As their ships continued their work, more transmissions poured in, not just from the Concordat Council, but from dozens of species watching humanity's return to the galactic stage. They had isolated Earth expecting submission or collapse. Instead, humanity had turned their punishment into an opportunity, advancing beyond anything the Concordat had imagined possible. The rescue mission marked more than just the end of Earth's isolation. It was the beginning of a fundamental shift in how civilizations would approach development and innovation. The age of rigid protocols and restricted research was over. Humanity had proven there was another way, one that embraced creativity, challenged assumptions, and faced the unknown with determination rather than fear. Breaking point. The Concordat's Grand Chamber had never seen anything like it. Where once there had been rigid hierarchies and ceremonial protocols, now there was barely contained chaos. Dr. Elena Santos watched through a quantum-enhanced feed as species after species rose to challenge the Council's authority. "They violated our most sacred protocols," thundered High Administrator Vexthor, his crystalline form flashing with agitation. "These humans simply appeared in our space, wielding technologies we had forbidden. Technologies that saved 12 worlds from starvation," interrupted Ambassador Zara of the Lysian Worlds, her feathered crest raised in defiance. "While we debated protocols, they acted. While we clung to restrictions, they innovated. The results speak for themselves." Director Chen stood calmly in the center of the chamber, a physical presence rather than a hologram. A show of trust that had surprised many. Admiral O'Neill stood at his side, her cybernetic enhancements drawing curious and sometimes fearful glances from the assembled delegates. "The quarantine of Earth was meant to protect the established order," Chen stated, his voice carrying through the chamber. "Instead, it proved why that order needs to change. The universe doesn't care about protocols. It presents challenges, and life must adapt or perish." The Concordat's science minister, a being of pure energy contained within an ancient environmental suit, moved forward. "But your methods are dangerous. Unrestricted quantum manipulation, biological engineering without safeguards." "Without your safeguards," Admiral O'Neill corrected. "We developed our own. Different doesn't mean dangerous. It just means you haven't considered all the possibilities." In her observation post aboard the quantum-cloaked station above the Concordat capital, Elena watched the proceedings with growing satisfaction. Her quantum comm chimed, and Professor Chen's image appeared beside her. "The quantum sensors are picking up interesting readings," he reported. "At least 30 species are using our techniques to mask their own research activities from the Concordat. They've been studying our methods since the agricultural rescue." Elena nodded. "They're tired of being told there's only one path to advancement." The Concordat's control was already weakening, We just gave them proof that there are alternatives." Back in the chamber, more voices were joining the chorus of dissent. The Artaxian League, known for their biological sciences, admitted they had already begun incorporating human techniques into their research. The Mureth Collective revealed they had detected human quantum signatures months ago and had been secretly attempting to replicate the technology. High Administrator Vexthor's crystalline form pulsed with alarm. "This is exactly what we feared. Our careful order is dissolving into chaos." "Not chaos," Director Chen corrected. "Evolution. Growth. The natural progress of civilizations learning from each other rather than being constrained by artificial limitations." Dr. Yuki Tanaka's hologram appeared next to Chen, her presence requested to address questions about the agricultural intervention. "When we faced the barrier of your quarantine, we didn't try to break through it. We found a way around it. That's the fundamental difference in our approaches. You see barriers as absolute. We see them as challenges to overcome through innovation." The chamber erupted in discussion again, but this time the tone was different. Species were openly sharing their frustrations with the Concordat's restrictions, their desire to explore new paths of development. Some were already forming research alliances, inspired by humanity's examples. Admiral O'Neill received a priority message through her neural link. "Director," she said quietly, "we're detecting quantum tunnel signatures matching our early experiments. At least 7 species have successfully replicated basic versions of our technology." Chen allowed himself a small smile. Faster than expected. Once people see something is possible, they stop accepting artificial limitations. The Concordat's security minister, a massive being of living metal, rose to speak. "The humans have already corrupted our order. Their ideas spread like a virus, infecting." "Like a cure, you mean?" interrupted a new voice. A representative of one of the agricultural worlds humanity had saved stepped forward. "My people were facing extinction, while the Concordat evaded which approved methods we were allowed to try. The humans saved us using technologies you banned. How many more crises will we face because we're afraid to try new solutions?" Belena's quantum sensors detected more ships arriving in the system, vessels from frontier worlds, independent species, even some from the Concordat's own member states. All came to witness what was quickly becoming a pivotal moment in galactic history. "We didn't come here to destroy your Concordat," Chen addressed the Council directly. "We came to show that there's another way. You can maintain your protocols for those who choose to follow them. But you must allow for alternatives. The universe is too vast and too complex for any single approach to be sufficient." The chamber had grown quiet, the weight of change heavy in the air. Even High Administrator Vexthor seemed to recognize that they had reached a turning point. The old order wasn't being destroyed by force, it was being transformed by choice, as species after species recognized the potential that lay in freedom to innovate. "Perhaps," Vexthor said finally, his crystalline form dimming slightly, "it is time for the Concordat to adapt." As the chamber erupted in renewed discussion, Belena received another quantum transmission. More ships were arriving through quantum tunnels. Not human vessels this time, but ships from various species, all carrying scientists and researchers eager to share knowledge and explore new possibilities. The breaking point had been reached, but it wasn't leading to collapse. Instead, it was becoming a breakthrough. The beginning of a new era of galactic development, where innovation and cooperation would replace restriction and control. Humanity hadn't needed to defeat the Concordat. They had simply needed to show that there was another way. New dawn. The Sol Centauri Research Exchange bustled with activity, its quantum-engineered halls filled with scientists from across the galaxy. 1 year after the collapse of the Concordat's authority, humanity's home system had become the center of a new kind of interstellar cooperation. Dr. Maya Patel stood at the observation deck, watching ships arrive through quantum tunnels, each one carrying researchers eager to share knowledge and explore new possibilities. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" Professor James Chen asked, joining her at the window. His hair had more gray now, but his eyes still held that same spark of curiosity that had helped drive humanity's quantum revolution. Honestly, I expected more resistance, Maya replied, gesturing to a holographic display showing the latest statistics. Over 200 species have joined the exchange in just 1 year. Even some of the old Concordat hardliners are starting to come around. The facility they stood in represented everything the Concordat had feared, and everything humanity had proven was possible. Quantum laboratories worked alongside biological research centers. Scientists from species that had once been restricted from even meeting now collaborated freely, combining their unique perspectives to solve problems that had stumped their civilizations for centuries. Director Chen's hologram materialized nearby. "The Artaxian delegation has arrived," he announced. "Their bioengineering insights combined with our quantum computing might finally crack the problem of neural transfer between organic and synthetic systems." "And the Concordat remnant?" Maya asked. "Still maintaining their protocols and their core systems," Chen replied. "But even they're starting to adapt. They've requested observer status in the exchange. They want to monitor our progress." His slight smile suggested he understood the real reason. They couldn't afford to be left behind. Dr. Elena Santos entered the observation deck, accompanied by a towering crystalline being. Former High Administrator Vex Thor, now serving as a liaison between the old order and the new. "The quantum translation matrices are revolutionizing interspecies communication," Elena reported. "We're discovering that many of our previous misunderstandings stemmed from the Concordat's standardized translation protocols. They tried to make all communication fit their existing framework," Vex Thor acknowledged, his crystalline form shimmering with what they had learned was embarrassment. "Just as they did with technology and development. We were so focused on maintaining order that we forgot the importance of adaptation." Admiral O'Neill's quantum projection joined them, her image now incorporating elements of the cybernetic integration techniques they'd shared with their new allies. "The defense fleets are reporting success with the combined technology initiatives. The Mareth Collective's phasing technology combined with our quantum tunneling has solved the asteroid collision problems in the frontier systems. And more importantly," Maya added, "we've proven that unrestricted research doesn't have to mean unrestricted danger. Each breakthrough is shared, examined, and improved upon by multiple species. Natural checks and balances through cooperation." Through the window, they watched as a massive Lysian research vessel emerged from a quantum tunnel, its biomechanical hull incorporating designs from 3 different species. It was just one example of how quickly things had evolved once artificial barriers were removed. "The agricultural crisis was a blessing in disguise," Elena mused. "It forced everyone to confront the limitations of rigid protocols. When we showed there was another way, we didn't just show them," Chen corrected gently. "We proved it could work, then helped them achieve it themselves. That's the real difference between our approach and the Concordats. We never tried to control the process." James manipulated a holographic display, showing the spread of quantum technology throughout known space. "The really interesting developments are happening on the edges," he noted. "Species combining different approaches in ways none of us had considered. Every barrier broken opens up new possibilities." Vex Thor's crystalline form pulsed with what they now recognized as excitement. "My people have existed for millennia, believing we had reached the pinnacle of possible development. Now, working with organic species we once thought primitive, we're discovering entirely new states of matter. It's humbling and enlightening," Maya added. "Every species brings their own perspective, their own way of approaching problems. The Concordat tried to standardize everything. We've proven that diversity of thought is our greatest strength." Director Chen received a priority notification through his quantum link. "The first deep space expedition using the combined technologies is ready for launch," he announced. "A joint mission to explore beyond known space, crewed by members of 20 different species, using ships that incorporate technology that was forbidden a year ago," O'Neill noted with satisfaction. "Not forbidden," Elena corrected. "Just not yet imagined. That's what humanity brought to the galaxy. Not just new technology, but a new way of thinking about what's possible. As they watched the exchange continue its work, Maya reflected on how far they had come. The Concordat's quarantine, intended to isolate and punish humanity, had instead sparked a revolution in thought and development. They hadn't just overcome the barriers placed before them. They had shown the entire galaxy that barriers were often just opportunities in disguise. "We never wanted to rule," Chen said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. "We just wanted to explore, to discover, to grow." In the end, that proved more powerful than any attempt to control or restrict progress. Outside, more ships arrived through quantum tunnels, each bringing new ideas, new perspectives, new possibilities. The age of restriction was over. The age of innovation had begun. And it had started with humanity's simple refusal to accept that something was impossible just because someone said it was. In the endless dance of stars beyond the exchange's windows, Maya saw the promise of what was to come. They had turned isolation into opportunity, restriction into innovation, and fear of the unknown into excitement for discovery. The new dawn they had helped create wasn't just for humanity. It was for all species ready to embrace the endless possibilities that lay ahead.